Here we are in our last week of study of the book of Philippians. And this week what we're studying is the joy of contentment. In Philippians 4:10 through 23, Paul begins by talking about how he is rejoicing in the Lord and giving thanks to the Philippians for the gift that they sent him. I actually considered calling this or titling this section of our study, The Joy of Giving, because I don't want to miss this piece of it. There is joy in giving, and there's also joy in receiving. When I studied 2 Corinthians last year with a group of women, one of the things that came out, especially in chapter 8, was that we should give according to what we have and not according to what we don't have. Let me clarify this for you a little bit. If you're going to make out a pledge for your church and you think about all the things that you still need or want, you're thinking about all of that, your giving isn't going to be very generous. But if you start thinking about everything that you already have, including your salvation and all that Jesus has given you, the greatest gift of all, you will give generously. And that is exactly what the Philippians did. They gave generously. And so Paul was rejoicing that God had worked that far in their heart to create generosity, that their focus really was on Christ. So right after Paul rejoices about the gift, he goes to verse 11 and says, "Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever the circumstances." You know, some people might even think that he wasn't being super thankful, but what Paul is saying is that he had learned to be content, whether he had much or little. You know, having a lot or having a little can be a huge test of our faith, either one of them, because sometimes when we have a lot, we can forget about God because we have what we think we need. And yet, sometimes when we have a little, we can forget about who really supplies it. We're so focused on what we need at that time that we forget about who really supplies everything that we need. You know, a few years ago, we had a women's retreat that was called Unwind. And what we did is we studied the Psalm 23. And as I was preparing to talk about that psalm, I actually couldn't get past verse 1 that said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And all I could think about is the gazillion things that I wanted, especially in that season of my life. I really wanted my mom to be healthy. I wanted her to be able to get into a really good memory care unit because she needed one. I wanted my husband to get a job. I wanted to finish school. I wanted my kids to make good choices in life. I wanted a new carpet and a vacation. Actually, I still do. But all I'm saying is I had a huge list of wants, and I could hardly get past the fact that I still wanted all these things. Not all the wants were necessarily bad wants. In fact, I don't think any of them were. What happens and what God is really saying is if your wants are the sole focus of your life, that's all you're focusing on, you're going to struggle, and you're never going to be content. And in fact, really, honestly, if you're not content with what you have right now, chances are that whenever you get what you want so badly, you still won't be content. Contentment really is finding that inner peace with what you have, whether it be your situation or the things that you have. It's knowing and trusting. It's a rest in God, knowing that He has your best interest in mind, that He really is going to take care of you, and that whatever you need is in the face of Christ. You know, in today's society, we are bombarded in social media, seeing what everybody else has. We see new houses, new cars. We see people's families, friends, their kids. And we see just a snapshot of what their real life looks like. I often tell my daughter, Hallie, not to compare everyone else's snapshot with her whole life, because we don't know the story behind it. We don't know the troubles. We don't know their brokenness or their loneliness on the days when they're not all with all their friends. I often call what we have in society today as the if only. So, if only I had blank, then this, then I would be content, then I would be and feel right about life. But like I said before, if you're not content right now, chances are you're not going to be content, because contentment comes from internal peace. It comes when we trust God and rely on Him for everything. One of the things Paul says is that contentment is learned. And I love that, because contentment isn't just dropped into us. It comes from practicing. As we practice focusing on God, focusing on everything that we've been given in Christ, as we focus on Him as our sole provider, and really that He provides everything for us, we can find contentment. I think many of us struggle with Christ being enough. But as we seek to know Him and as we learn to trust Him, it really can change our lives and we can find contentment. That doesn't mean that we're never going to want anything. It just means that we're not going to be overtaken. That won't be our sole purpose, our sole focus in life, to focus on everything that we want. That we will be so focused on Him that we'll realize we have enough. I love this too. One thing that Paul actually says that contentment is learned, but he also gives an idea that contentment is not easy, because he says, I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. God can and will give us the strength to be content, and when He is our focus. Paul ends this letter talking about greetings to the other people in Philippians, to his brothers and sisters in Philippians. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have fellowship with other believers, to be with other people who are doing the same thing, who are living a life with their focus on Christ and the gospel that He has brought to us. Well, this ends our study of Philippians and Pure Joy. I really honestly pray that this has made a difference for you. I have some homework for you this week, and I also wrapped up in chapter summaries. That's what we do in our precept study. We wrap it up with some chapter summaries of what we've learned throughout this study. Kind of a concise way to look at it. I hope that it helps you kind of capture what we've done in this 10 weeks of study. I am so filled with joy to be able to do this with you, and I hope that you go and live life with pure joy, keeping your eyes on Christ. Have a great day.